The world stopped when she laughed. Ethan's heart, already bruised, shattered like glass under the weight of her words, each syllable a jagged edge. In the crowded Brooklyn cafe, her voice rang out, sharp and cruel. "You're throwing a pride party." "Really? Ethan? That's pathetic." The murmurs around them fell silent. Ethan clutched the invitation he'd spent weeks designing, its rainbow edges crumpling in his fist. He'd known coming out to Vanessa, his childhood best friend, would be hard, but not this. Not her mocking his truth, his joy, his life. Her laughter echoed, a sound that would haunt him, but also ignite something fierce within. New York City, 2025, buzzed with its usual chaos. But for Ethan Carter, a 24-year-old graphic designer, the world had just narrowed to this moment. Vanessa, with her perfect blonde curls and designer heels, had been his rock since they were kids sneaking into Coney Island arcades. They'd share dreams, secrets, and late-night pizza runs. But now, her face twisted with disdain, she tore the invitation in half and tossed it onto the table like trash. "You're not serious," she sneered, leaning back in her chair. "A gay pride party? What's next? Ethan, a parade down Fifth Avenue. You're embarrassing yourself." He wanted to scream, to tell her how much her words cut, but his voice caught. Instead, he stood, trembling, and walked out into the humid summer air. The city's pulse-honking taxis, street vendors, distant sirens felt like a heartbeat urging him to keep going. He wouldn't let her break him. Not Vanessa. Not anyone. Ethan had come out 6 months ago, a decision that cost him his conservative family in upstate New York. His parents' cold silence had been brutal, but he'd thought Vanessa, his chosen family, would understand. Her rejection stung worse than theirs. Yet, as he walked along the Hudson, the river glinting under the setting sun, a spark flared in his chest. Her laughter wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Back in his tiny Williamsburg apartment, Ethan stared at the torn invitation on his desk. The pride party wasn't just a celebration. It was his defiance, his way of claiming space in a world that often felt too small for him. He'd planned it for months, a rooftop bash at the Standard, a venue he'd saved every freelance dime to book. Vanessa's words replayed, pathetic. He clenched his fists. She was wrong, and he'd prove it. His phone buzzed. A text from Jamie, his co-worker and the only person he'd told about the party besides Vanessa. "You okay? Saw you leave the cafe. She's not worth it." Jamie, with his easy grin and endless optimism, had been Ethan's lifeline at the design firm. A queer black man who'd navigated his own battles. Jamie knew the weight of rejection. Ethan typed back, "I'm not okay, but I will be." That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat at his laptop, sketching ideas, his anger fueling creativity. The party would be more than a night of music and lights. It would be a statement, a middle finger to Vanessa's cruelty, to every door slammed in his face. He'd make it unforgettable, not just for him, but for every queer kid in the city who'd ever felt small. By morning, his vision was clear, a pride event so bold, so electric, it would ripple through New York's veins. The next day, Ethan met Jamie at their firm's cramped office in Soho. The space smelled of coffee and ink, and Jamie's desk was a chaos of color swatches and mock-ups. "So, Jamie said, leaning back. What's the plan? You're not letting her ruin this, right? No way, Ethan said, his voice steady for the first time in days. I'm going bigger. I want this party to be huge. I'm talking live music, drag queens, a light show that'll make Times Square jealous. And I want it to mean something. Jamie grinned. That's my boy. But you're gonna need help. Venues like the Standard don't come cheap. And you're not exactly swimming in cash. Ethan nodded. Money was tight. But he'd already thought of that. I'm pitching it to local queer-owned businesses. Sponsorships. If they see the vision, they'll back it. And I'm posting about it online, X, Instagram, everywhere. This isn't just my party anymore. It's for all of us. Over the next week, Ethan threw himself into planning. He cold-called bars, bakeries, and boutiques. His passion infectious. A queer-owned brewery in Bushwick offered free drinks. A drag performer named Sapphire Star, a legend in the underground scene, agreed to perform. Even a local tech startup pledged funds for a drone light show. The momentum was building, and Ethan felt alive, like he was stitching together a community he'd always longed for. But Vanessa wasn't done. A mutual friend, Lila, texted him a screenshot from X, Vanessa's post, dripping with sarcasm. Some people think they're special just because they're different. Good luck with your little party, Ethan. The post had likes too many. His stomach churned. But he didn't respond. Not yet. He'd let his success be his reply. By the end of the week, Ethan's party had a name, Radiance. It wasn't just about pride. It was about shining so brightly that no one could look away. He designed a logo of Phoenix rising from rainbow flames and plastered it across social media. The hashtag RadianceNYC started trending locally, and RSVPs poured in. Strangers messaged him, sharing their own stories of rejection and resilience. Each one fueled him further. As the days passed, Ethan's apartment became mission control. Sticky notes covered his walls, vendor contacts, set lists, lighting cues. Jamie stopped by nightly, bringing takeout and ideas. You're building something real, Jamie said one evening, biting into a dumpling. This isn't just a party. It's a movement. Ethan smiled, but doubt lingered. Could he pull this off? The Standard's deposit had wiped out his savings, and Vanessa's words still echoed, pathetic. He pushed the thought away. He had to focus. The party was 2 weeks away, and New York was starting to notice. The city hummed with anticipation, but Ethan's nerves were fraying. 2 weeks until Radiance, and the pressure was a vice around his chest. Every night, he lay awake, spreadsheets and sketches blurring in his mind, wondering if he'd bitten off more than he could chew. New York's queer community was rallying behind him. A lesbian-owned bakery in the East Village donated rainbow cupcakes. Their frosting swirled with edible glitter. A trans DJ named Kai, who spun tracks at underground clubs, offered to headline for free. Your story's spreading. Man, Kai said over coffee, their silver earrings catching the light. People are talking. This party's gonna be it. Ethan forced a smile, but the weight of expectations was heavy. He'd poured his heart into Radiance, not just for himself, but for every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. The Standard's rooftop was booked, the permits secured, But the budget was razor thin. One misstep, and it could all collapse. Vanessa's shadow loomed larger than he'd expected. Her ex-posts grew bolder, each one a jab at Ethan's desperate need for attention. She shared a meme of a glitter-covered unicorn with the caption, "When you think a party makes you relevant." Cringe, the likes piled up, each one a reminder of how easily cruelty spread. Ethan muted her, but the damage was done. His inbox filled with messages from old high school friends. Some supportive, others echoing her mockery. Jamie noticed the shift in Ethan's mood. "She's just noise," he said one evening, sprawled on Ethan's couch with a laptop balanced on his knees. "You're building something real. She's just shouting into the void." "Maybe," Ethan muttered, staring at his phone. A new message from Lila. "Vanessa's telling people you're using the party to scam sponsors. Be careful." His stomach dropped. Vanessa wasn't just mocking him, she was trying to sabotage him. He couldn't let her win. The next morning, Ethan doubled down. He filmed a raw, unfiltered video for X, standing on his fire escape with the city sprawling behind him. "This is radiance," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves. "It's not just a party. It's for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. We're gonna light up New York. Together." He posted it, heart pounding, and watched the views climb. Comments flooded in. "I'm coming. You're a hero, Ethan. Screw the haters." The video went viral, shared by local influencers and queer activists. A news blog picked it up, calling Radiance the pride event New York didn't know it needed. Sponsors called, offering more funds. A lighting company donated LED panels for the rooftop. Ethan's dream was growing, but so was the target on his back. Vanessa didn't stop. At a mutual friend's birthday drinks, she cornered Lila, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "Ethan's just milking his sob story," she said, swirling her wine. "He's not special. He's just loud." Lila texted Ethan later, apologizing, but the words burned. Vanessa wasn't just attacking him, she was dismissing the entire community he was fighting for. Ethan channeled the hurt into action. He met with Sapphire Star, the drag queen, at a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen. Sapphire, towering in platform boots and a neon wig, sipped a martini and listened as Ethan poured out his fears. "Honey," she said, her voice warm but firm. "Haters like her, they're scared of your light. You're not just throwing a party, you're showing the world we're unstoppable. Keep going." Her words stuck. Ethan spent the next days in a whirlwind, finalizing logistics. He secured a permit for a small street closure outside the Standard, turning the block into a mini festival with food trucks and pop-up booths. A queer youth nonprofit asked to set up a table, offering resources for kids like Ethan once was scared, alone, but dreaming of more. Every call, every email, felt like a brick in the foundation of something bigger. But doubt crept in late at night. What if Vanessa was right? What if Radiance flopped? He'd sunk everything, his savings, his reputation, his heart into this. Failure wouldn't just hurt him. It would give her the last laugh. He pushed the thought away, focusing on the details, the set list, the lighting cues, the drone show that would paint the sky with rainbows. A week before the party, disaster struck. The lighting company backed out, citing scheduling conflicts. Ethan suspected Vanessa's influence. Her family had connections in the industry, but he had no proof. Panic set in. The rooftop needed lights to come alive, and his budget was tapped. He called Jamie, voice shaking. "I don't know what to do." Jamie didn't hesitate. "We'll figure it out. I know a guy in Queens who rents LEDs cheap, and I'm calling in every favor I've got." By the next day, Jamie had secured a new vendor, but the cost pushed Ethan to max out his credit card. He didn't care. Radiance had to happen. The night before the final planning meeting, Ethan stood on his fire escape, the city's lights stretching out like a promise. He thought of Vanessa's laugh, her torn invitation, her venom. Then he thought of the messages from strangers, the sponsors, the community rallying behind him. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It was theirs. The Standard's rooftop glittered under the afternoon sun. A blank canvas Ethan was determined to transform. 5 days until Radiance. And the pressure was a living thing, clawing at his chest. He stood at the edge of the rooftop, the Manhattan skyline sprawling before him, and tried to breathe. The team, Jamie, Kai, Sapphire, and a handful of volunteers bustled around, testing sound systems and marking spots for booths. Ethan clutched a clipboard, his checklist a mile long. Confirm food trucks, double-check the drone show, pray the new lights arrived on time. Every detail mattered. This wasn't just a party anymore. It was a beacon. Vanessa's latest ex-post had hit that morning. A dagger wrapped in faux concern, worried about Ethan. Throwing a party won't fix his issues. Get help. The comments were a mixed bag. Some defended him. Others piled on. Ethan's jaw tightened as he read it. But he didn't respond. He'd learned her game. She thrived on attention, on dragging him down. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, he threw himself into the final push. The queer youth nonprofit sent a rep named Marisol, a soft-spoken woman with a knack for logistics. She helped Ethan map out the street festival, ensuring accessibility for disabled attendees. "This is going to change lives," she said, her eyes bright. "Kids like me needed something like this growing up." Her words hit hard. Ethan remembered being 16, hiding who he was, terrified of his parents' judgment. Radiance wasn't just about proving Vanessa wrong, it was about giving those kids a place to belong. He worked late, sketching layouts, calling vendors, and posting updates on X. The hashtag RadianceNYC was trending citywide now, and RSVPs topped 1,000. The city was watching. But Vanessa's sabotage didn't stop. 2 days before the event, a major sponsor, a queer-friendly bar in Chelsea, pulled out, citing PR concerns. Ethan's gut told him Vanessa was behind it. Her family's influence ran deep, and whispers of her spreading rumors about his unstable planning reached him through Lila. He confronted the bar's owner, who admitted to pressure but wouldn't name names. Ethan hung up, furious, but he didn't have time to dwell. Jamie stepped in, calling every contact he had. By nightfall, a new sponsor, a queer-owned coffee chain, stepped up, matching the lost funds. "You're not alone in this," Jamie said, clapping Ethan's shoulder. "She's trying to break you, but she's underestimating you." The night before Radiance, Ethan barely slept. He walked the rooftop alone, the city's hum a distant comfort. The lights erived barely, and the crew set them up under Kai's direction. Sapphire rehearsed her performance, her voice carrying over the skyline. Everything was falling into place. But Ethan's nerves were electric. What if it wasn't enough? The morning of the event dawned clear. The sky a perfect blue. Ethan arrived at the Standard at 6 a.m. His stomach in knots. Volunteers swarmed, setting up booths, stringing rainbow banners, and testing the sound system. The street below buzzed with food trucks and early arrivals. Ethan's phone pinged with messages, "Can't wait. This is going to be epic." He allowed himself a small smile. This was real. By noon, the rooftop was transformed. LED panels cast vibrant hues, and the Phoenix logo glowed on a massive screen. Sapphire, in a glittering gown, mingled with early guests. Her laughter a balm to Ethan's nerves. Kai's beats pulsed through the speakers, setting the mood. The nonprofit's booth was already crowded with teens. Some shy, others beaming, picking up flyers and free merch. But Vanessa's shadow lingered. Lila texted, "She's coming tonight. Says she wants to see the train wreck." Ethan's blood boiled. Of course she'd show up to gloat, to mock, to tear it all down. He pictured her strutting in, her smirk cutting through the joy he'd built. No, he wouldn't let her ruin this. As the sun set, the crowd swelled. Hundreds poured in, queer folks, allies, strangers drawn by the buzz. The rooftop thrummed with energy, laughter mixing with music. Ethan stood by the bar, watching it all unfold. A teen with purple hair approached, clutching a pronoun pin from the nonprofit. "This is the first place I've felt safe," they said, voice shaking. Ethan's throat tightened. This was why he'd fought. The drone show was minutes away, the centerpiece of Radiance. Ethan climbed to the DJ booth, where Kai handed him a mic. The crowd hushed, all eyes on him. His heart pounded. But he thought of that kid, of himself at 16, of every person who'd ever been told they didn't belong. "New York," he called, his voice carrying over the skyline. "This is Radiance. This is for us, for every time we were told we couldn't shine. Tonight, we light up the world." The crowd roared, a wave of love and defiance. Ethan's eyes stung, but he grinned. Vanessa could come. She could laugh. But she'd see what he'd built: a community, a movement, a fire she couldn't extinguish. The drones hummed to life, their lights painting rainbows across the Manhattan sky. The crowd on the Standard's rooftop gasped. Phones raised, capturing the spectacle. Ethan stood at the edge, heart racing, as the Phoenix logo blazed above, its colors bleeding into the stars. Radiance was alive. The music pulsed. Sapphire Star commanded the stage, her lip sync fierce and flawless. And the crowd danced, a sea of bodies united in joy. Ethan scanned the faces: queer kids, allies, strangers, all here because he dared to dream. For a moment, he forgot Vanessa, forgot the pain. This was his victory. Then he saw her. Vanessa, in a sleek black dress, weaving through the crowd with a smirk that could cut glass. She wasn't alone. Two friends flanked her, their laughter sharp and rehearsed. Ethan's stomach twisted, but he held his ground. She'd come to gloat, just as Lila warned. Let her try. Jamie appeared at his side, following his gaze. "She's here to stir shit," he muttered. "Don't let her get to you." "I won't." Ethan said, though his hands shook. He turned away, focusing on the crowd. A group of teens from the nonprofit booth waved at him, their faces alight with gratitude. He waved back, forcing a smile. This wasn't about her. It was about them. But Vanessa had other plans. She made her way to the bar, her voice carrying over the music. "This is cute," she said to her friends, loud enough for others to hear. Ethan's little fantasy land. Too bad it's all for show. Heads turned, whispers spreading. Ethan's jaw clenched. She was poisoning his moment, turning his triumph into her stage. Sapphire, mid-performance, caught Ethan's eye from the stage. She paused, grabbing the mic. "This night," she said, her voice booming, "is for everyone who's ever been told they don't belong. And to the haters, honey, you can't dim our shine." The crowd cheered, drowning out Vanessa's laughter. Sapphire winked at Ethan, and he felt a surge of gratitude. He wasn't alone. The drone show ended, and Kai transitioned to an upbeat track, the rooftop erupting into dance. Ethan mingled, thanking sponsors, hugging strangers who shared their stories. A non-binary teen told him, "I came out to my mom tonight because of this." Ethan's eyes burned. This was worth every sleepless night, every dollar spent, every barb from Vanessa. But she wasn't done. An hour later, Ethan overheard her near the nonprofit booth, her voice dripping with venom. "He's using these kids for clout," she told a small group, gesturing at the teens handing out flyers. "It's pathetic how far he'll go." One of the teens overheard, their face falling. Ethan's blood boiled. She wasn't just attacking him, she was hurting the very people he'd fought for. He marched over, his voice low but firm. "Vanessa, stop." She turned, her smile cold. "Oh, Ethan, enjoying your little spotlight. It won't last." "This isn't about me," he said, stepping closer. "It's about them." He nodded at the teens, who watched wide-eyed. "You don't get to tear that down." She laughed, tossing her hair. "You're delusional. This is a circus, and you're the clown." The words stung, but Ethan didn't flinch. The crowd around them grew quiet, sensing the tension. He could feel their eyes, their support. He thought of the kid with the pronoun pin, of Sapphire's words, of the phoenix in the sky. "You're wrong," he said, his voice steady. "And you're about to see how wrong." He turned away, heart pounding, and climbed to the DJ booth. Kai handed him the mic again. The music softened, and the crowd turned to him, expectant. Vanessa stood below, arms crossed, her smirk daring him to fail. "New York," Ethan began, his voice carrying over the rooftop. "I started Radiance because I was told I wasn't enough. Because someone I trusted laughed at who I am." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But tonight, I see you, all of you, and I know we're more than enough. We're unstoppable." The crowd roared, a wave of love and defiance. Vanessa's smirk faltered, her friends shifting uncomfortably. Ethan continued, "This is for every kid who's been rejected, every person who's been told to hide. We're here. We're proud. And we're not going anywhere." He raised his fist, and the crowd echoed his energy. chanting, "Radiance! Radiance!" Vanessa's face reddened, her confidence cracking. She hadn't expected Thesa community united. A city watching. Ethan handed the mic back to Kai, who cranked the music, and the rooftop exploded into celebration. As Ethan stepped down, Sapphire pulled him into a hug. "You slayed, honey," she whispered. "She's got nothing on you." The night rolled on, electric and alive. Ethan danced, laughed, and felt the weight of Vanessa's cruelty lift. She lingered for a while, her presence a shadow. But by midnight, she was gone, her friends trailing behind. Ethan didn't care. Radiance was a success, and he'd done it for himself, for the community, for the kid he used to be. The rooftop pulsed with life, the city's skyline a glittering backdrop to Radiance's triumph. Ethan stood by the railing, catching his breath, the cheers still ringing in his ears. He'd faced Vanessa down, and the crowd's love had drowned her out. But the night wasn't over, and neither was her shadow. As the party hit its peak, social media exploded. X posts with Radiance NYC flooded Ethan's feed, videos of the drone show, photos of Sapphire's performance, selfies of strangers hugging under rainbow lights. A local news outlet live-streamed the event, calling it a love letter to New York's queer community. Ethan's phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from people he'd never met. "Thank you for this. I've never felt so seen." But Vanessa's venom lingered online. She posted again, a photo of the crowded rooftop with a caption, "All this for a pity party." Sad. The likes were fewer now. Her followers split. Some called her out. Others egged her on. Ethan's hands trembled as he read it. But he didn't reply. He'd learned her attacks thrived on his reaction. Instead, he shared a video of the crowd chanting, letting their joy speak for him. Jamie found him by the bar, his grin wide. "You see the numbers. We're trending nationwide. You did this, Ethan." He handed Ethan a drink, non-alcoholic, to keep him sharp. "She's losing her grip. Keep the focus on what matters." Ethan nodded, sipping the drink. The nonprofit booth was still bustling, teens laughing as they painted rainbow flags on each other's faces. Marisol caught his eye, giving him a thumbs up. "We've raised enough for a new youth center," she called. Ethan's chest swelled. This was bigger than him, bigger than Vanessa's hate. But trouble brewed. Lila texted, "Vanessa's talking to a reporter. She's spinning some story about you misusing funds." Ethan's heart sank. A lie like that could unravel everything: the sponsors, the goodwill, his reputation. He scanned the crowd, spotting Vanessa near the edge of the rooftop, gesturing animatedly to a man with a press badge. Her smile was all charm, but Ethan knew the poison behind it. He moved toward her, weaving through dancers, his pulse racing. The reporter, a young guy with a notepad, listened intently as Vanessa spoke. "Just saying. It's irresponsible," she was saying. "He's got no experience. And all this money. Where's it really going?" "Vanessa," Ethan said, his voice cutting through her words. She turned, her smile tightening. The reporter looked between them, sensing a story. "You're lying," Ethan said, calm but firm. "Every cent is accounted for. The nonprofit's books are open. You want to see them?" The reporter raised an eyebrow, scribbling notes. Vanessa laughed, but it was strained. I'm just looking out for the community, she said. Someone has to. No, Ethan said, stepping closer. You're looking out for yourself. You've been trying to tear this down from the start. Why? Because you can't stand that I'm building something real. The crowd nearby quieted, heads turning. Vanessa's face flushed, her composure cracking. You're so full of yourself, she snapped. This isn't about community. It's about your ego. The reporter scribbled faster. Ethan took a breath, choosing his words. This is about kids who need a safe place. About people who've been told they don't belong. You wouldn't understand. Vanessa, you've never had to fight for that. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some nodding, others whispering. The reporter turned to Vanessa. Care to respond? She faltered, her eyes darting. Two don't need to justify myself to him, she stammered, then turned and pushed through the crowd, her friends trailing. The reporter watched her go, then turned to Ethan. Got a minute to talk about Radiance? Ethan spent the next 10 minutes sharing his story, not just the party, but why it mattered. The rejection, the pain, the hope. The reporter listened, his expression softening. This is good, he said. This is what people need to hear. As the night wound down, Sapphire took the stage for her final number, dedicating it to every soul who's ever risen from the ashes. The crowd sang along, their voices carrying over the city. Ethan stood with Jamie and Kai, watching the nonprofit teens dance, their faces alight with possibility. He'd done it. Radiance wasn't just a party, it was a promise kept. But Vanessa's lie about the funds lingered in his mind. He knew she wouldn't stop, not until she faced real consequences. As the last guests left, Ethan made a decision. Tomorrow, he'd go public with the truth, every receipt, every email, every dollar accounted for. If Vanessa wanted a fight, he'd give her one the whole city would see. The morning after Radiance, Ethan woke to a city buzzing with his name. X was ablaze with posts about the party clips of Sapphire's performance, drone show highlights, and heartfelt threads from attendees. A news article headlined, Radiance Lights Up NYC's Queer Community, quoted Ethan's speech, painting him as a beacon of resilience. But Vanessa's accusation about misused funds cast a shadow, a ticking bomb he couldn't ignore. He sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, coffee cold. Jamie and Marisol joined him, their faces grim as they scrolled through Vanessa's latest X post. Nice party. Ethan, but where's the money going? Shady. The comments were brutal. Some believed her, others called for proof. Ethan's hands shook. He'd built something beautiful, but her lies could tear it down. We've got to fight this, Jamie said, slamming his laptop shut. She's not just coming for Yosha's coming for the nonprofit. The kids. All of it. Marisol nodded. Our books are clean. Every dollar's tracked. We can release a statement. Show the receipts. Ethan agreed. But he wanted more than defense. He wanted the truth to hit harder than Vanessa's lies. We go public, he said. Not just a statement. A full breakdown, every sponsor, every expense, every donation. We post it on X. Tag the news. And let the city see who's really shady. They spent the day compiling data. Marisol pulled financial records. Jamie drafted a press release. And Ethan designed an infographic breaking down Radiance's budget, venue costs, vendor payments, nonprofit donations. By evening, they had an airtight package, transparent, undeniable, and damning to Vanessa's claims. Ethan posted it on X with a caption, "Radiance was for our community, not for profit. Here's every dollar, every truth." Radiance NYC, he tagged the reporter from the party, local blogs, and queer organizations. The post spread like wildfire, retweeted by Sapphire, Kai, and hundreds of attendees. Comments poured in. "This is how you do transparency. Vanessa's done." By nightfall, the tide turned. The reporter published a follow-up, praising Radiance's accountability and questioning Vanessa's motives. Her ex account went silent. Her earlier posts buried under a wave of backlash. Ethan's phone buzzed with messages from strangers. "You're a legend. She messed with the wrong guy." But Ethan didn't feel victorious. He felt raw, exposed. Vanessa's cruelty had forced him to bare his soul to the city. And while it worked, it hurt. He thought of their childhood summers at Coney Island. Her laughter when it was kind, not cruel. How had they ended up here? The next day, Lila called. "Vanessa's freaking out," she said. "Her family's pissed. They're getting calls from sponsors she pressured to drop you. She's losing it." Ethan. He didn't smile. "I didn't want this," he said. "I just wanted her to stop." "I know," Lila said softly. "But she made her choice." The fallout grew. Vanessa's friends distanced themselves. Her ex-followers plummeted. And a local gossip blog dug up her history of bullying, linking it to Radiance. Ethan didn't read it. He didn't need to. The city had seen her for who she was. He focused on what mattered. The nonprofit reported a surge in donations, enough to fund a youth center for queer teens. Marisol invited Ethan to their first planning meeting, where kids shared ideas for art classes, support groups, and pride events. One teen, the one with the pronoun pin, hugged him. "You made me feel like I could do this too," they said. Ethan's eyes stung. This was why he'd fought. A week later, Sapphire hosted a drag brunch in Brooklyn, dedicating it to Radiance. Ethan attended, laughing as she roasted the crowd with her signature wit. Afterward, she pulled him aside. "You didn't just throw a party," she said. "You showed us what's possible. Don't stop." He didn't plan to. Radiance had sparked some thinga network of queer businesses, activists, and youth groups planning more events. Ethan was at the center, his inbox full of invitations to speak, collaborate, create. He'd turned pain into power, and the city was listening. But Vanessa's silence nagged at him. He hadn't wanted her destroyed, just held accountable. Late one night, he found a message in his inbox, not on X, but a private email. It was from her. "Ethan," it read, "I was wrong. I didn't get it. I'm sorry. No excuses. No justifications. Just those words." He stared at it, unsure what to feel. Was it genuine? A ploy? He didn't reply. Not yet. He needed time. As he closed his laptop, the city's lights glowed through his window. Radiance had changed him. Not just the city. He'd faced rejection, fought lies, and built something unstoppable. Vanessa's fall wasn't his goal, it was her consequence. And he was just getting started. Ethan's apartment was quiet. The cities hum a soft undercurrent as he reread Vanessa's email. Her apology sat heavy. A single line that didn't erase the months of pain. He wanted to believe her. To see the girl he'd once called his best friend. But trust was a bridge she'd burned. Outside, New York pulsed with its endless rhythm. Radiance had left its Mark X posts still circulated. The nonprofit's youth center was breaking ground. And Ethan's name was synonymous with resilience. But the victory felt bittersweet. He'd won. But at what cost? Vanessa's fall was public. Her reputation in tatters. He hadn't meant for it to go this far. Jamie noticed his mood at their next meeting. A cramped coffee shop in Williamsburg. You're not still thinking about her, are you? He asked, stirring his latte. She dug her own grave. I know, Ethan said, staring at his untouched coffee. But we were friends once. I didn't want to destroy her. You didn't, Jamie said firmly. You told the truth. She's the one who lied, who tried to tear you down. Don't carry her guilt. Ethan nodded, but the weight lingered. He threw himself into new projects, planning a Winter Pride event, mentoring teens at the nonprofit, designing logos for queer startups. Radiance had opened doors, and he walked through them, determined to keep the momentum alive. The city's queer community embraced him. Sapphire invited him to guest judge a drag competition. Kai asked him to collaborate on a music festival. And Marisol recruited him to speak at the youth center's opening. Each step forward felt like a reclaiming of the space Vanessa had tried to take from him. But her email gnawed at him. A question mark he couldn't ignore. A month after Radiance, Ethan got a call from Lila. Vanessa wants to meet, she said. Neutral ground. She says she needs to explain. Ethan hesitated. Part of him wanted to slam the door shut, to let her fade into the past. But another part, the part that remembered their childhood laughter, needed closure. Okay, he said, but on my terms. They met at a quiet park in Brooklyn. The autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Vanessa looked different, smaller. Her usual confidence dimmed. No designer heels. Just sneakers and a plain jacket. She sat on a bench, hands clasped, and met his eyes. I messed up, she said, her voice soft. I didn't understand what it meant to you to be out, to throw that party. I was scared. Ethan. Scared of losing the version of you I knew. He crossed his arms, his guard up. So you mocked me. Spread lies. Tried to ruin everything I built. She winced. I was wrong. I thought you were leaving me behind. That radiance was you saying you didn't need me anymore. I lashed out. Ethan's throat tightened. Her words echoed the hurt of their fractured friendship. But they didn't excuse her cruelty. You didn't just hurt me, he said. You hurt kids who needed that night. You tried to tear down something good. I know, she said, tears brimming. I saw the posts, the stories. I saw what radiance meant to people. I was jealous. Okay. You were so fearless. And I felt small. He wanted to stay angry, to let her words bounce off him. But he saw the girl who'd once shared her ice cream when his fell, who'd stayed up late helping him with art projects. "Vanessa," he said, "I needed you to be my friend, not my judge." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want to make it right. I don't know how, but I want to try." He didn't forgive her, not yet. But he didn't shut her out either. "Start by listening," he said. "Learn what this community means. Show up for it, not against it." She agreed, and they parted without promises. Ethan walked home, the city's lights of familiar comfort. He didn't know if Vanessa would change, but he'd given her a chance. That was enough for now. Back at his apartment, he opened his laptop. The Radiance logo still his wallpaper. The youth center's opening was a week away, and he was designing its Murala Phoenix. Of course, rising from rainbow flames. The work grounded him, a reminder of what he'd built from pain. As he sketched, his phone buzzed. A message from the teen with the pronoun pin. "Just got accepted to art school. Thank you for showing me I could do it." Ethan smiled, his heart full. This was his purpose, not Vanessa's fall, but the rise of those who needed him. The youth center's opening day dawned crisp, the Brooklyn air alive with possibility. Ethan stood outside the new building, its walls still smelling of fresh paint, the Phoenix mural glowing under the morning sun. Teens and volunteers buzzed around, setting up tables, hanging rainbow banners, and testing a small stage for speeches. Radiance had sparked this, and Ethan felt its fire in his bones. The past month had been a whirlwind. Ethan's speech at Radiance had cemented him as a voice in New York's queer community. Invitations poured in, panels, fundraisers, even a guest spot on a queer podcast. He said yes to most, driven by the faces of the teens he'd met, their stories echoing his own. Vanessa's email and their park meeting lingered in his mind, but he'd pushed them aside. Today wasn't about her. It was about the future. Marisol greeted him with a hug. "You ready?" she asked, her clipboard overflowing with notes. "We've got 100 kids coming, plus donors and press." Ethan nodded, nerves tingling. He'd prepared a short speech, not about Radiance's triumph, but about the kids who'd inspired him. The center was their space, a haven for queer youth to create, connect, and heal. He'd poured his heart into its design, from the mural to the art room stocked with supplies. As the event began, the crowd grew: teens, parents, activists, and curious locals. Sapphire arrived in a sparkling blazer, cracking jokes that made the kids laugh. Kai spun a mellow playlist, setting a warm vibe. Ethan scanned the faces, spotting the teen with the pronoun pin, now chatting confidently with new friends. His chest swelled. This was what he'd fought for. Then he saw her, Vanessa, standing at the edge of the crowd, alone. No designer heels, no entourage, just her in a simple sweater, clutching a small gift bag. Ethan's pulse quickened. He hadn't invited her, hadn't expected her to show. Part of him wanted to turn away, but her eyes met his, hesitant, almost pleading. The speeches began. Marisol spoke first, thanking donors and sharing the center's mission. Ethan was next. He stepped to the mic, the crowd's warmth anchoring him. "This place," he said, "is for every kid who's ever felt alone. For every time someone told you you're not enough. You are. And this center is proof. The applause was thunderous. But Ethan's eyes flicked to Vanessa. She clapped, her expression unreadable. He stepped down, and Marisol announced an open house, inviting everyone to tour the center. As the crowd dispersed, Vanessa approached. "Ethan," she said, her voice low. "I didn't come to make a scene. I brought this." She handed him the gift bag. Inside was a sketchbook, the kind they'd used as kids, and a note for the art room. "I'm trying to listen." He looked at her, searching for the cruelty he'd come to expect. It wasn't there. "Why now?" he asked. "I went to a queer community talk last week," she said. "I heard stories kids like the ones here. I didn't get it before. I'm sorry, Ethan. I want to do better." He didn't trust her fully. Not yet. But her effort was a start. "Keep showing up," he said. "Not for me. For them." He nodded toward the teens exploring the center. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and left quietly. Ethan watched her go, the weight of their past lighter but not gone. He turned back to the center, where a teen was already sketching in the art room, the Phoenix mural glowing behind them. The day ended with laughter, music, and plans for the future. Ethan stood on the center steps, the city stretching before him. Radiance had been his spark, but this center, these kids, were his legacy. Vanessa's fall had been her own making, but Ethan's rise built on love, resilience, and community was what the city would remember. As the sun set, he posted one last update. "The youth center is open. This is our radiance. Our future." Radiance NYC, the responses flooded in. A chorus of love from a city that had watched him soar. He smiled, knowing he'd turned pain into purpose. And the best was yet to come.